So you can remove that from the agenda.
All right, thank you. So on our consent agenda tonight, we have approval of the June 9th and June 23rd special meeting minutes, approval of the May bank balances, budget report for period ending 5/31/2020, approval of the May check register, legal costs on projects, department head monthly reports for June 2020, second amendment to temporary sanitary sewer treatment agreement between the City of Gladstone and the Oak Lodge Water Services District, approval of an OLCC off-premises sales license for Two Girls Catering. And I'm questioning, is that under Two Girls Catering? Or is that going to be under Pearl's Place? I don't, because I believe that's the name they're moving forward with. Anyway, you can tell us. Approval of Resolution 1180, which is a resolution adopting a revised master fee schedule to amend the North Clackamas County Water Commission wholesale rate from 0.7363 per 100 cubic feet of water to 0.7437. Our regular meeting agenda includes the lease agreement for the Gladstone Fire Department office space, discussion of the Gladstone Fire Department siren, discussion regarding social justice, equity, and inclusion, and request for proposal for the city attorney services. I think that's it for that. So the first thing is the consent agenda. And Jackie, is it under Two Girls Catering or Pearl's Place?
Just to clarify, their liquor license application is under Two Girls Catering and Barbecue LLC.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on the consent agenda? Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda. Councilor Neese.
Motion was made by both Councilors Tracy and Councilors Neese. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Mercero. Is there any further discussion? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Excuse me, Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Neese?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Yes.
Councilor Todd?
Yes.
Councilor Mercero?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes, consent agenda is passed. Do we have any correspondence?
I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, so it's all confusing here since we had two actual meetings. So a couple of things before we start, and I do this at every meeting. First, for those folks that would like to speak, the deadline to accept comments was noon today. And as a reminder, we allow 3 minutes for public comment unless there are special circumstances and the additional time has been approved beforehand by staff. One citizen questioned the fact that I have business from the audience at the end of the meeting, that this could be inconvenient for some. And I want to let you know that this is actually a recommendation from the League of Oregon Cities and is becoming more and more standard. It's because this is our business meeting, and by looking at the agenda, everybody knows that we do have business that we have to discuss and decide on. So as soon as the business is done, I'm more than happy to have business from the audience, and we also allow people to speak on the individual agenda items. Second, as I do before every meeting again, I would like to say a few words regarding the City Council. The most important limitation we have sitting here is that we are representing the citizens of Gladstone, not our own personal agendas and beliefs. There have been many times when a decision being made doesn't align with what we would like personally, but we've made a decision based on what is best for the city as a whole. That doesn't mean our personal beliefs have changed, just that the city's needs were more important. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decisions. These start at the federal and state level, filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. We do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead we have to be consistent and take a path that is defensible. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and participate in this process. I believe that we will have all your phones muted until it is time to speak, and if we're not able to mute your phone, please mute it yourself. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful and engaging, and I hope everybody can help us do that. So the first item on our agenda is 10, which is the lease agreement for the Gladstone Fire Department office space. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor Stemple, City Council. I'm going to hand it over to our Fire Chief, Rick Huffman, to talk about an excellent opportunity and a partnership that's available right across from the fire department. So Chief, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Just in review, the need for quick response 24 hours a day for emergencies requires additional efforts to improve those response times. The 2017 standard of cover that was adopted by council in 2018 establishes a goal of 90 seconds for a turnout time, excuse me. What that means is from the time dispatch gets the call and alerts the fire station, they have 90 seconds to get their gear on, realize where they're going, and start responding to the emergency. In 2015, our standard of cover, I'm sorry about that, our response time was 5 minutes for our turnout time. And that's mostly because of the way we staffed in the past. And that was, we alerted the firefighters from their home or workplace. They responded to the fire station, got on a piece of fire apparatus or, emergency equipment, and then responded to the emergency. And that really adds up in time. So what we're trying to do is decrease that time. The previous fire chief was able to do a kind of a creative way of fixing that by getting the apartment that is behind the fire station and renting that for crew quarters. That was a great first step at reducing times, but we're still not on target yet. Ironically, across the street, sandwiched in between the iconic gas station owned by Cycle Express and Watts Heating and Cooling, there's a building that's being remodeled and available for lease. So after evaluating our options, I decided to move our administrative offices out of the fire station and move the firefighters inside the station for the optimum way of responding to a call. So they'll reduce their response times by at least 30 seconds by being in the station. This does meet our plans with the strategic plan and the standard of cover goals. And completing this move will improve our response time and improve our administrative and logistical support of the fire department. The building across the street is a 5,000 square foot commercial space. The address is 540 Portland Avenue. As I stated, it's right across the street from the fire station. It'll allow ample space for offices, meeting, and public training space along with firefighter training. I found the owner of the building to be very gracious and cooperative. He really, as you can tell with the gas station, he cares about what buildings look like, and he is working to match the color scheme and style of the fire station, which will really add to the Portland Avenue space in that area. In your documents, you have an attachment that contains a draft floor plan that gives you an idea of the space that we'll be able to use. It is very spacious and it will really, really complement our operations and training. Attachment 2 is a detailed copy of the lease, the proposed lease. And only one notation I have is that the building is not completed yet, and so the dates that are listed in the lease agreement may change. The lease does provide for planned expenses for budgeting purposes, and we're able to fund this out of current existing line items, our facilities line item, and any unanticipated moving costs will be covered by a facility project fund that we have for this year. I'd like to open it up for questions now if you have any before I make a proposal.
Does anybody have any questions?
Councilor Ripley, I have a few questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Getting the office space, I think that could be a good idea, getting administration away from the people, maybe they'll show up a little bit more. But the data, this 5-minute response, I don't know where you came up with that at. That is so incorrect. 28 years that I responded on calls, and the calls that I made the rig, we're out the door in less than 2 minutes, sometimes just over 2 minutes. I'm a minute from the station, and I couldn't make the rig half the time. But if we're telling people the volunteers were a 5 minute to get to the station and get the rig out the door, That is so incorrect. We can't be spreading bad rumors like that. We need to actually use the right numbers. So I'm not sure where these numbers came from, but they need not be used. That's all I got to say.
Councilor Ripley, thanks for that input. The number was taken out of the strategic plan and the standard to cover that was adopted. I agree that some of the data will be conflicting. On that note, I'm working on standardized data for the last 3 years when we had full paid on call staff, the captains, and then now under our pandemic conditions, which the staffing is a little different. But your point's well taken. The data is a big issue, and I'm working on getting consistent numbers. Thank you.
Yep. Is that, if we're going to be telling people stuff like that and really make it look bad when we actually had a lot of responders responding and we were getting 3 engines in the truck out the door, and now you can't do it. There's, we're trying to put makeup on a pig here or something. I don't know what we're trying to hide, but it's given data like that. It gives over 100 years worth of volunteers a black eye.
Counselor, I really appreciate that, and that's not the intent. The numbers were just an example that I pulled from the standard to cover, and I did preface it with it's the way we staffed back then, and that's really not really a concern in my eyes at all. The commitment of the paid on call firefighters of the past is something that can't be matched today. We're having an extreme difficult time getting the quality and the commitment of people that you had when you worked there and previously. That is another issue, and that's part of our recruitment efforts, and I can report on that later.
Any other questions? I don't see any. Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I have a question, I said. I raised my
Oh,
hand.
sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
With the layout that you have done and you are proposing for the offices across the street, how many rooms are we going to eliminate the apartment then? How many rooms do you anticipate of putting in the firehouse then for people to sleep in?
Thank you for that question. That answer has been affected by the pandemic conditions. We have 3 office spaces that will be converted into crew quarters, and one will be the captain's office / crew quarter. One of the rooms can handle 2 beds, but because of spacing, we're not going to be able to do that right now. But we will be able to sleep 3 people in their crew quarters 24/7, and that is the state adopted staffing for a fire engine is 3 people.
Okay. And one of the rooms, would it be also specified, because you have to have a place for women and I know we have 1 woman working there. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's a great question. The rooms are all individual. If we do plan to have a double bunk in 1 room, of course, we would make sure it's separated. And hopefully we'll have a female firefighter captain at some point that can staff the front office. But we do have that available as a privacy issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry, Mary. So the proposal would be to discontinue the apartment rental agreement and enter into a 5-year lease for the office space across from the fire station. My recommendation is option 1, to approve the lease and move into the offices and move the crews into the station. Thank you.
And I would also like to add that the city attorney did help prepare the lease agreement, so we had it reviewed for any liability issues. So we are comfortable with how the lease agreement is proposed.
Thank you for that, Jackie, because I was going to ask a question, so you answered it.
Any other questions? Okay, motion was made by Counselor Tracy and seconded by motion was made by Counselors Tracy and Neeson, seconded by Counselor Mercero. Any further discussion? All right, Tammy, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Ripley,
Because of the incorrect data, I'm going to say no.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. All right, motion's passed. All right, anything else on that, Chief? Do you need anything from us?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, next item is number 11, discussion of the Gladstone Fire Department siren. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, since we have our fire chief with us tonight, we're going to ask him to talk a little bit about the nostalgia surrounding the historic siren that's been used at the fire department. It is our intention to remove it from the old City Hall site and prep for demolition, but we wanted to make sure that the City Council had an opportunity to discuss that. And so I will let Rick give a quick overview of his memo.
Thank you. Yep, I'm still here. Sorry, guys. I'd like to just do a quick review and then have more of an open discussion on and answer any questions you have about the siren. Last summer, I sent an email that summarized some of the actions of using the siren and what its current condition is. I apologize for not following up on that. I thought I did, but so there's a little delay in that, and so I'm sorry for that. Basically, I had to go to Mike Funk and some of the other members of the fire department to get the historical perspective on the siren, as actually I had never used one before. So the siren was initially used to alert the on-call firefighters to respond from their home or workplace to the fire station, and then they would respond to the emergency. I think what started to change the pattern was in the early 90s, the fire department started going on emergency medical calls. They dramatically reduced the use of the siren because they were running more calls and it was going off multiple times a day, and I was told that there was actually complaints about it. And part of the mechanics of it is when you set the siren off, somebody has to go to the station to shut it off because everybody went on the emergency. So sometimes it would go for a little while, I was informed. The practice changed for the siren to be activated for only structure fires and drowning calls to reduce the number of times and to notify people of the urgency of the situation. And incidentally, the 9/11 attacks put everybody on a heightened sense of awareness and unease, kind of like the current pandemic conditions. And there were some complaints and reduced use because of that, I was informed. And until approximately 2005, it was used to alert firefighters for training drills also, and that was discontinued shortly after. I can tell you that since my time as fire chief, we have not used it for an emergency call out. And the primary reason for that is the structure of the department and our demographics have changed considerably over the decades. Technology has allowed us to use smart devices, pagers, radio pagers, and other communication devices to alert the on-call firefighters. And that's what we do today. They use a smartphone app, they have pagers and other devices that allow them to be called in very quickly. And kind of related to that is public notification of a siren has really been taken over. Let me rephrase that. The siren going off and notifying the public and the citizens of something going on has really been taken over by social media. Matter of fact, there's reports of emergencies before we even get on scene sometimes. And so the information channel has actually improved quite a bit. And the only other thing to say about the siren is it doesn't stop at city boundaries, and it is heard in Oregon City and other areas. And with infrequent use becomes a little bit of confusion by those hearing it, and they may not know what it's for, and it can be very alarming to some people. But in closing, you know, it's really about the history of the city and the fire department. It was an amazing tool. There was a great workforce that used it, but technology, times, and response standards have changed in the last couple of decades to where we really don't need it anymore. And because it's on the existing City Hall building that's slated to be demolished, to use it would need a little bit of work. It would take a time, effort, and money just to get it off the building. And it is a 3-phase power siren, so it would take some funds to rewire it and a new location that could support it. It is fairly heavy. So that's the summary of the siren that I know. And as the city administrator said, I recommend that we surplus it or give it to the historical society so we can maintain the history, but we do not need the operation of the siren anymore. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Chief? Councilor Tracy?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, do you know how long has that siren been up on top of that building, just out of curiosity?
Council, I've asked many of the firefighters, and Randy Hopperstead and Mike Funk are the longest standing firefighters we have, and it was there when they were there. So it's been there for at least 40 years.
So as a follow-up, so we could conceivably pull it down and give it to the historical society and maybe just keep it in the city if it has some historical relevance, correct?
That is one option, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Todd?
I don't really have a question. It's just more that since I'm sort of the old person in this group, it's been there for at least 50 years. I don't think that there's ever been a time that I don't know that it's been there. I've definitely chatted with people. I don't think that there's a need for the fire department to use it. There hasn't been a fire department need for it since 1988 when Richard Newton and I were in senior English class and his beeper went off. He wasn't getting the call from, you know what I mean? Of course, it was always during a test, but I don't think that there's a need. I think that there might be a nostalgia thing that might be helpful. You know, mostly during water rescues. I mean, we don't have AMR down at High Rocks right now. Are we maybe giving the wrong sign that water rescues aren't happening or going to happen this summer because people are expecting to hear the, you know, the siren for maybe just that kind of a scenario, a collective community pause? I don't know. It's something I've really been thinking about. I was the one who brought it up a long time ago too. So everybody sort of knows where I stand with it. Nostalgia. So I don't have any questions about it. I just wonder if we could use it a different way. The fire department doesn't need it. They don't need to have it be how they call anybody in, but it hasn't been a way to call anybody in for 40 years, you know, at least 30. So that's all.
Thank you. Councilor Mercero?
Yes, I got a question that you mentioned the option of possibly moving it. Have we considered where that might be and the possible cost of doing that? I know you mentioned it's going to cost a bit, but that would be a ballpark, if nothing else, just so people could make a decision, helping them to make a decision based on that.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll be honest, I did not entertain any quotes or estimates on moving it, mostly because we, as the other councilors have said, we don't really need it right now. But to pull it off the station or the top of the roof would require some kind of heavy lift boom, and moving it would be a truck. We could probably deal with that, and then mainly it would be the electrician and any mounting that would be needed on a new facility that would locate it. A ballpark, I would say it costs a couple $1,000s to remove and reinstall it.
Councilor Ripley here.
Yes, Councilor Ripley.
It has been used. When I left, when it was still being used while we still had volunteers there. There was quite a few times where people didn't have their pagers, but they heard the overhead siren going off. So even as recent as a few years ago, it was still a good tool.
Okay, Councilor Todd?
I just wondered, I've never physically seen it. How big is it and how heavy is it? I mean, you just hear it. I've never been up on top of the rooftop up there.
Councilor, it's actually it's actually visible if you're across the street. Yeah.
Oh, is it? So it's just that piece that's sticking up. It's not as huge as I'm sort of imagining.
It's
It's
huge.
actually
It
above
just-
the old city administrators.
Hello. We didn't hear that, Chief. What?
Sorry, I was making sure I didn't cut off one of your counselors. It's actually above city administrator's old office. You could see it from Pearl's or Two Girls Catering if you're across the street. It's approximately 2 foot by 2 foot square, and it's mounted on a pedestal and hooked up to the power on that side of the building. It's fairly heavy.
Any other questions? So you're not really asked, Councilor Mercero.
Do you have an option of where to put it? Will it fit on the existing fire station? And
Counselor, no, I did not.
to clarify that, will the weight be allowed on the existing fire station?
Thanks, Counselor. I have not looked into the options. As I said, the use of it really is not needed right now. If we needed to look at that, it would have to structurally have a location for it. I'm not sure the fire station roof has a spot for that, but there would be that same consideration wherever we moved it.
It doesn't sound like we need it at all. Why don't we talk to the Historical Society and see if they have any ideas of where we could put it so that everybody can see it? I don't think putting it up on a roof, if we want to keep it for its historical context, put it on a roof where no one can see it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But putting it where people can actually see it seems like a better option. And we're not really voting on this. Councilor Mercero?
One option, I believe, is it was considered for nostalgia, so to speak, yet it's nice to hear, quite frankly, when we do have a major fire and or drowning going on, and a slight discussion with some people in the neighborhood. They're not worried about the noise. They, as I get it, would like to hear the siren to know what's happening.
Counselor, I appreciate you checking with some of the citizens. I think the bottom line is we do not need it for operational needs at the fire department. I personally believe that it's not necessarily a welcome sound to everybody. Some people take it as a tornado warning or other warning signals. If the council wants me to look into options on how to use that, I'm willing. It's just, it will take time, money, and effort to do that.
Thank you.
I'd be willing to help looking into resources to keep it. I talked about 35 people just this week about it, but for maybe 3 people who are just new to living here, who the realtor did not tell them about it, that it was going to go off. There's some interest in it, at least for a festival opening, or if we had a boil notice again, that sort of stuff. So I'd be willing to help look at options for it.
All right, Councilor Tracy? Councilor Ripley, what?
Well, that was in a very nice way.
I'm sorry,
One of my thoughts is the main reason we're getting rid of this is because I know when the last chief started, he didn't like using the word volunteer, and it seems like we're trying to get rid of a lot of Gladstone's history and a lot of what Gladstone does and can afford to do. It seems like we're trying to get rid of that stuff, like an embarrassment to somebody to have the volunteer word or the air raid siren up there. And if that's the reason they want to do this, that's not the right reason. we got to stop trying to get away from the past and get away from our history. And it seems like a lot of this stuff is just trying to do that.
I think for clarity purposes, the reason why this is being brought to you is because we are getting the old City Hall building ready for demolition, and we were going to remove the siren. That is why we are discontinuing it, because the fire chief didn't have an operational use for it. I understand that the history is important, and there's no reason why we can't keep the siren and possibly use it for other events. But the impetus was because of the demolition for the old City Hall building is why we're going to remove it.
I have a question. Since we're talking about it, and where are we going to put it? Can it be put on a pedestal and set down in front of the fire station with a plaque on it and what it represented, and have it there? How much would that cost us to do something like that? Because I have to agree, you're with Councilor Todd and Ripley, because you have got history here, and that has been a piece of this community for many years. And a lot of people haven't seen it and don't pay attention to it up on top of City Hall. Is it something that could show well and we could have it down by the fire station?
I would talk to the Historical Society because they have money, and that may be a project that they would like to take on.
Sure.
Can I ask a clarified question, Councilor Tracy? Chief Huffman, you're bringing this to our this topic of conversation. Are you asking whether or not we should just let the wrecking ball take the building down with the siren on top, or potentially salvage the siren? I mean, is that the real conversation we're having right here? Because we could salvage a siren, put it in a closet, and make these harder decisions later if we need to do that. Is that what you're asking, Chief?
Councilor, thank you. I was mostly to inform you of the lack of need for it now. And Councilor Ripley's point, the history and the recognition of the dedication of the fire department is something that has not been questioned by me at all, and that can be validated with the other chiefs. But to answer your question, sir, yeah, we could probably salvage it and look at the options of making a placard or some kind of historical marker out of it, which I would be very much in favor of. I think it'd be a very interesting piece of the history, especially on Portland Avenue.
Yeah. I think the important fact that we're trying to provide you is that because you haven't heard the siren doesn't mean there hasn't been a swimming or drowning incident or a fire in Gladstone. And so we wanted to be clear that we're not using it for operational needs any longer, but we certainly all agree that we should preserve it as a piece of history.
Does that seem fair to everybody? We're not really taking a vote, but a consensus. Councilor Tracy, does that sound okay? Councilor Todd?
It does. I just didn't want it to, I know that there was plans on selling it and salvaging it, and I just wasn't for that.
Okay, but you're okay with the salvage and decide?
I'd love to have more discussion about it, even if it's just like, so let's come up with some ideas of what to do with it, but not just having it go away. No.
Councilor Mercero, you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that as long as we make a good decision on what we do want to do with it in some kind of a near time frame.
A near time frame, you said soon?
Basically, yes.
Okay. Councilor Neese, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Councilor Ripley, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you have your marching orders, Chief. We're going to keep it and then decide what to do with it later.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll report to the city administrator and with some options.
All right. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is 12, which is discussion regarding social justice, equity, and inclusion. We don't have any attachments. This was requested by Councilor Tracy and Councilor Todd, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Todd, do you want me to lead off?
Yes, please.
So this conversation, or the agenda item, is a result of multiple conversations I've had with a number of citizens in our fine city that have given me a little bit of pause because of some of the experiences particularly in the Gladstone School District, some of our students of color, and Black students particularly, are experiencing basically outright and overt racism and some other experiences throughout the town. So what I did was early June or mid-June, I approached City Administrator Betts and asked about the potential for us to have a town hall meeting that would include the Gladstone City Council, the Gladstone Police Department, and the school board, Gladstone City School District School Board. City Administrator Betts told me that subsequent to that conversation, she did meet with Police Chief John Schmerber, I believe Superintendent Bob Stewart, and a number of the faith-based organizations to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion in the Gladstone School District, but also the relationships between Gladstone Police Department and our citizens of color. We have not come up with a plan to have a town hall, and what I'd like to do personally, and I'll go ahead and yield to Councilor Todd, is to let our citizens who've asked to speak on this topic tonight speak now instead of business from the audience at the end of the meeting. That, of course, I think it's a consensus of the council for them to do that. But with no further ado there, I'll go ahead and yield to Councilor Todd if you want to add something to that.
Well, I want to let you know that we do have 4 people scheduled to speak on this topic now instead of during business from the audience.
So we would want to do that now, Mayor?
Well, after Councilor Todd speaks, then we can bring them in if you'd like.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you wanted to do that or at business of the audience. So
No, I'd like it now instead of later.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll yield to Councilor Todd.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is that we need to hear what the people who have taken the time to come forward and, you know, send letters and make phone calls and reach out to us. We need to learn from them what we need to hear. And so I think now would be the time to do that. And, you know, just a sort of a mini listening session on this is appropriate right about now.
Okay. And a reminder that we have 3 minutes. So hopefully each of you that are going to speak have something that takes 3 minutes or less. Tammy, do you want to call them in? I think we have Ben Hildner, Mary Marfett Brown, Martine Koblenz, and Anessa Hartman.
Ben Hilder would be the first.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, good. Thank you, City Council and Mayor and Chief Schmerber. I spoke over a month ago about the issue of race in Gladstone and racism in Gladstone in the hope to create a conversation. And I've spoken with Councilor Tracy about creating a town hall. I think that conflict is necessary and productive, and a lack of conflict, especially when it comes to race, results in stagnation and decay. I think we have a lot of growing left to do. I think as a city, Gladstone, I have been very impressed with Chief Schmerber. His response and responsiveness to conversations and willingness to engage and learn and change has been impressive. I actually spoke with the sheriff, Craig Roberts, today, who was also very open and engaging and having a conversation with me, as well as the Board of County Commissioners. I have been to 2 protests here in Gladstone, and both times had aggressive people who threatened our safety of protesters while protesters have been safe. And yet I have heard absolutely nothing from a majority of the city councilors about race and growth and conversations that need to take place. I think that it is not a lot to ask to go beyond keep it positive or kindness matters. I think that we need to have real conversations about the experience of young people, particularly young people of color in Gladstone, and I think we need to have that yesterday. I think there is no obstacle but your willingness to engage and invite people to that conversation. It is essential that you listen to other voices, particularly those of Gladstone's youth and people of color. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Mary Morfitt Brown.
Hello. I'm not one of the youth of Gladstone, unfortunately. My name's Mary, and I've lived here for 3.5 years when my son and daughter-in-law and I bought a house on Los Verdes Drive. I would like to strongly encourage the Gladstone City Council to host a virtual town hall meeting on the subject of racism, because it is truly needed right now. I'm a retired nurse practitioner. I'm also the widow of a Black educator, and I have 3 Black sons, and I have 2 Black grandchildren and a Haitian daughter-in-law whom I adore. So Black lives matter a great deal to me. My late husband used to talk about how the civil rights legislation changed the law, but it didn't change people's hearts. I truly believe that watching George Floyd die on the nightly news in our living rooms changed some hearts. After that tragic incident, I was really impressed by the sheer volume of traffic on Gladstone next door, with so many people chiming in with questions, concerns. There were so many people that, in fact, the local Gladstone Baha'i Assembly, which I'm a member of, we used our Zoom subscription to establish an online discussion group for the community and posted it on Nextdoor. And we've met 3 times now. We've had between 7 and 12 participants each time to discuss a lot of different concerns regarding anti-racism, regarding inclusion, regarding making people comfortable. There is a lot of support for a Gladstone Town Hall meeting, mostly to take the temperature of the community. It does not have to be confrontational if we're focused on improving Gladstone, our public health, our public safety, our schools, our children's future. It can be uncomfortable at times because that's what happens when you go beyond your comfort zone. But when we venture out of our comfort zones, that's where the growth is, that's where the learning is. I'd hate to see us lose this opportunity to become more inclusive. There is a lot of concern out there, and I think a town hall meeting would be a very good method for the city council to approach it, to address it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Martine, I believe.
Yes, hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So thank you, Mayor Semple and councilors. My name is Martine Koblenz, and I've been a resident in Gladstone since December of 2016. Mary is my mother-in-law. My family and I bought a house here. This is where we're establishing our roots. We're a multi-generational home with our 2 kids and my mother-in-law. We're also a family of mixed races. We're a family of color. The conversation around racial equity and how to create a community that is racially just is of utmost importance to us because it directly impacts us. While recent events nationally have brought this subject to the fore, it's been a constant everyday reality and conversation within my family. I've seen many young families from diverse backgrounds move into our city since I've moved in, and our demographic will continue to change in this way. Now is the time for Gladstone City Council and our mayor to show our community that racial justice matters to you. Now is the time for all residents to know, especially those who are not a part of the dominant group, that they belong and that they are a beloved part of our community. I urge you to be leaders in this work by starting off with a town hall meeting so you can hear the experiences of our residents. Engaging with the community and acknowledgement of our experiences is the first step towards change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we have Anessa Hartman.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Semple and City Councilors, and thank you, Councilor Tracy Todd and Matt Tracy, for bringing this item into the agenda. My name is Anessa Hartman. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I have been a Gladstone citizen for the past 4 years. I am a mother of 2. I am speaking to you today in regards to the racial inequalities within our community and how you as a city council plan to address the matter. It has become very apparent to me over the past few weeks that there are 2 distinct views within this community in regards to racism. You have one side that doesn't believe or doesn't want to believe that it exists here in Gladstone. Then you have the other side that either fully understands that systematic racism is alive and well, or they themselves live it every day. I have had the opportunity to hear and speak with many members of our community, as the organizer for both of the local protests and one of the admins for the Gladstones anti-racist group, I have seen and heard a disheartening amount of stories and examples within our community and our school district in regards to overt racism. My aspirations are as follows. I would like to request a town hall specifically for all to learn about our town's history and current experiences with racism and discrimination, so that you too can further understand the deep-seated issues that we face on a daily basis. How more now than ever we need to establish an equitable framework for an inclusive society. In order to start, we must provide these opportunities of education and open discussion and center this town hall around our citizens of color. Number two, given the lack of ethnic diversity within the city council and school board, I would suggest putting together an advisory team of community members that are committed to challenging and dismantling the systematic racism, empowering equality, and promoting diversity within our community. I want to encourage our community leaders to take a very active role in spreading the anti-racist message and educating those that don't see a need for continuing these uncomfortable but very necessary discussions. Instead of turning a blind eye to these very apparent issues, let's as a community come together and be the leader of change. Let's finally listen to our community members of color and make it a proclamation that racism and white supremacy has no place in the city of Gladstone and will not be tolerated. Being silent is still taking sides, so I urge you all to use your voice, use your privilege, and let's stand up against racial inequalities so that all feel heard, all feel welcome, and all feel part of this community and not excluded from it. And thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing the changes within our community.
Thank you very much. Does any counselor have any questions related to that? Now, I do want to say something. Mr. Hildner had said that nobody had publicly made any comments or statements. And I want to let you know that on June 5th, as part of the Metro Mayors Consortium, I did make a statement to stand in support of peaceful protests. It's on the MMC website, and I have a copy that I can give you. And then we also made another statement on June 25th in support of policing reform. Senate Bill 1604, House Bill 4207, House Bill 4201, House Bill 4205, House Bill 4203-4, House Bill 4208-1, 4208-2. So I have made 2 statements so far as part of the Metro Mayors Consortium. And I want you to know that this is the first city council meeting that we've had since the Gladstone discussions have started. So this would be the first time where I know I see Ben going, oh, it was not on the agenda. This is the first agenda that we could have this particular topic on. So we are bringing it up and we are talking about it. So Councillor Tracy, Councillor Todd, do you have anything else? Any ideas?
Yeah,
we want to move forward?
Councillor Todd, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? I'll go first. I'm going to counter some of what you just presented, Mayor.
Okay.
We're talking about things here at the local level. We're talking about the city council, school district, and the Gladstone Police Department sitting down with our citizens and asking our citizens about their experiences. It's very different than being part of a consortium, very different than supporting a House bill. This is having a discussion with the citizens that live in our town.
Absolutely.
Right. So I don't think we've done the work. In fact,
absolutely not.
Right. So I appreciate the work that you've done, and I appreciate that you've gone out and made a statement. I don't think those statements apply to what we're doing here and what's happening here in our city. And that's why I think that what Nessa was bringing forward with options and Ben as well, I think those are things that we should do. And I do urge the council to work with the city staff to potentially put together this Zoom meeting so that we can sit down and have a town hall and just have a discussion so all of us can learn about the other folks' experiences in this city. Because as a white male at 55 years old, I have no idea what my black neighbor is experiencing in Gladstone unless I talk to him. And that's just where I'll leave it there and yield to Councilor Todd.
No, I was going to agree with that, is that we need to have these difficult discussions. And I'm going to tell you, my white privilege has been my entire life as well. And I know it. And there's tons that I need to hear. And I can only hear it from these people that are brave enough to come to a meeting that was probably boring up until then, hearing about a siren and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like we need to do something, and I don't want to push it out. And I don't want to be like, let's do it. Like, let's get a plan in place. We need to move.
All right.
I'd like to say something, if I could.
Yes, Counselor Neese.
I have been reading all of the emails that's coming through, and I too think that we should have some kind of a town hall. I've been trying to understand. I am like Counselor Todd. I've not been exposed to it until in the last 5 years, and I have a son who has married into a family of with being a mixed family. And I've been talking with them and trying to learn and figure out, you know, what's important and what isn't. But I am open to listen, and I haven't spoke out because we're in uncharted waters here, and we don't walk in their shoes. We don't know how they feel. And I agree with both counselors that I think a town hall would be great. I did call Sandy and talked Sandy, Oregon, and talked with them. They just did one on July 7th. And they shared with me today and how informative it was. And it also brought their community together better. And I think we've got a great opportunity. And if we do this correctly and we do it well, I think we can have more engagement out of our community. And we all have to learn. That's what it's about. We don't understand, and we need to hear.
All right. Jackie, you met with Bob Stewart and the faith community. What type of plans were they talking about?
Well, the last time that Chief Schmerber and I met with the faith-based organizations and the superintendent, we said that it would be our recommendation to work with the city council. We know you're calling it a town hall. We're calling it a listening session. Given the COVID restrictions, I think Zoom is an excellent platform right now that we don't have to wait until we can all get together in a big area. So one of our thoughts was that we would set up for your second meeting in July, we would advertise that as a listening session so that we could encourage people in Gladstone to call in and participate, and let's start listening to the concerns that they have there. The faith-based organization is very much interested in learning just like we are. And I do agree that difficult conversations need to happen in order for growth to occur. We're willing as staff to put that forward for the city council. We don't pretend to have the answers or the expertise, but we do have empathy and compassion, and we need to understand the pain that is in the community. So if the council's willing, we could put together a listening session on July 28th at the same time that we're doing tonight. And let's just start hearing those stories so we have a better idea of what's happening in Gladstone.
So do we need a moderator of sorts for that? I just want to make sure that it's done right, because after the listening session, we're going to have action items, and I want to make sure that we're checking the boxes, that we've got it all laid out so that we have a plan to move forward.
I think to have a listening session without a facilitator is good. And really what we're going to find out is what are the issues, so that the next step might be to then engage a facilitator who has the experience and the professional background to help guide us through some of the action items. So I would encourage us just to have the listening session first, and then talk about what the next steps would be after that.
Okay. Just listening session. So I'm going to ask, Councilor Mercero, go ahead.
I haven't made a comment yet. I support the listening session, and I appreciate the comments that were made by our 3 or 4 people that came in tonight and made their requests. I really appreciate their time and effort to do that. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. So the 4 people that spoke, I just want like a thumbs up. Does that sound okay with you for a July 28th listening session?
Mayor Stemple, I just want to
Yes.
let you know that we have another person that would like to speak on this topic. They were supposed to speak under business from the audience, but have determined that they want to speak on this item.
All right, go ahead.
Kyle,
Hi, everyone. That's me.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Kyle Donovan. I've lived in Gladstone for 5 years with my husband and our 2 kids. My daughter will be in kindergarten this fall, and for that reason, I've become more interested in our town's governance and local education system. The first step on my journey to greater community involvement was attending Gladstone's 2 Black Lives Matter protests. At the first event, I was so heartened to see an undeniable turnout from our predominantly white community who were eager to stand in solidarity with Black people and stand up about systemic racism. As a white family, I explained to my daughter the importance of standing up for people who have been categorically oppressed for hundreds of years. At the second event, I listened to stories from a Black student and Black parents expressing the overt racism currently happening in Gladstone schools. My initial thought, coming from a place of white privilege, was, no way, this couldn't be happening in Gladstone. We're better than this. But as more and more students and community members shared their stories about racist experiences in Gladstone, all I could think was, if only our community could hear these stories with their own ears. If only they could hear this Black student's shaky voice as she recalled the bullying and racism she endured at Gladstone High School. Surely we as a community would do more to protect our children, right? If I know one thing about Gladstone, I know that we take a lot of pride in our community. Though based on the stories I've been listening to, it's obvious that we have a lot of work to do to live up to this pride. As my daughter enters kindergarten, I want to trust that her school district and all of the individuals within that embody the moral courage to be specifically anti-racist. And honestly, based on what I heard from the experiences of Black students and parents, that does not seem to be the case. My heart tells me that if we could further open the dialogue about the experiences of Black people and people of color in our community, our town would rally around them. But the first step to all of this is listening, learning, and believing their stories. While I don't have a list of demands, my purpose and goal of sharing my perspective with you is simply to continue to, 1, have on record that our town has a lot of work to do around racial equity, especially in our schools, and 2, to encourage our city council to take an active role in working toward becoming an example of an anti-racist group that uplifts Black and people of color voices. Maybe this is an anti-racist task force that includes community stakeholders. Is this an anti-racist agenda item on each of the city council meetings moving forward? Honestly, I'm not sure what the answer is, but my hope is that by myself and others regularly showing up to these meetings, we are met with an equally proactive council that seeks to acknowledge racism in Gladstone and acts with urgency to learn about and address racism in all levels and layers of government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Tammy, would you repeat her name again, please?
Kyle Donovan. Is it Kylie Donovan or Kyle Donovan?
It's Kyle.
Kyle
Thanks.
Donovan.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a thumbs up from everybody that we're gonna have staff move forward with the July 28th listening session. That's all right with everybody. So that'll take place of our work session that we have sometimes and don't have sometimes the end of the month. That works? All right. So next item on our agenda is number 13, which is request for proposal for the city attorney services.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Can I please answer one question that's in the group chat? And
Sure.
that's in reference to who is this faith-based organization that no one is identifying. So I just wanted to go through the list of churches that have been meeting regularly with Police Chief Schmerber and the school superintendent. And that would be the New Life Gladstone, Gladstone Christian Church, The Source Gladstone, Gladstone Park Seventh-day Adventist Church, Hillside Christian Fellowship, Every Marriage Matters, and the Gospel Fellowship Community Church. All of them have also said that they would be happy to have a listening session on this topic.
All right, anything else before we move on? I don't see any hands up. All right, so next item is number 13, request for proposal for city attorney services. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. As you are aware, the city attorney serves at the pleasure of the City Council. At your last City Council meeting, you had a conversation regarding putting together a request for proposal. So this is now back before you tonight. Couple of questions that we need some assistance on is on page 13-6 of the proposal, 5, in regards to how long you would like this to be advertised. We put in August 2020, but if we advertised it this week, I'd like some guidance on whether or not you want it to go for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So that is the first question we have, is on the proposed timeline to consider the proposals. Also wanted your thoughts on any other locations of where you want us to advertise outside of what we have in the proposal. And then who would like to be on the evaluation committee?
Mayor Simple, can I ask a question?
Yes, Councilor Neese.
I know we've had major discussion on this with the attorneys, and I know we had said we would do an RFP and go out. And Councilor Reisner has brought it up numerous times. And my question is, and I want to get clarification so we can get this put to bed. Do we go through an evaluation every 4 years for an attorney to represent the city? Because I'm not sure if we've done that. Do we do an evaluation like we do with our city administrator and look at the issues or problems if there is and how we can rectify them? Or what guidelines can we give to the attorneys? So have we done this in the past, the 4-year? Okay. So have we ever done an evaluation with 4 years, let's say, or 2 years, or yearly with the attorneys to let them know?
I believe by charter, aren't we supposed to do it every 4 years? And we have not done it.
An evaluation should take place every 4 years, just like with the city administrator and the judge. But I think what Linda's asking for is, does that have to be a request for proposals? And the answer to that is no. You're just required to evaluate the city attorney.
So in essence, the council has never said we need to sit down and do an evaluation every 4 years and look at it then. We have not followed what the charter has stated.
No. No. No, we have not. Councilor, yes, go ahead.
I kind of agree with Linda. I think before going out for qualifications proposals, there should be some sort of evaluation process, because I think keeping history with a company is a good thing, unless they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But then we should be finding that out before a 4-year mark. So I kind of think an evaluation needs to be done before we do a request for anything else. That's all I'm thinking.
I believe the discussion when we had the RFP out last time and nobody responded is that we were going to put it out again. But I guess if everybody decided that that wasn't what we wanted to do, then we're not going to do it.
Because I know we had some issues, and we have now switched to a different representative that's been coming to our council meetings. And I don't know how you feel, Mayor. Do you feel that that's worked better? Because I know there was you had questions on the previous representative we had. So how do you feel about this one?
I love David and I love Chad. Absolutely. I just feel that we've had them you've been our city attorney for what, 40 years now? Not you personally, David, but your firm, something like that. I can't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear him. For a really long time. How's that one? Really,
Okay,
really
that
long
works.
time.
I get what you're saying.
And we've never gone out for an RFP ever. And I just think that being good stewards of our money and our city, that we need to do that every once in a while.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilor Todd.
I just was wondering, when we did it last time, that was an RFP or an RFQ? Because I want to be specific on the difference between what we're doing now and then, and how long did we do it, advertise it, and get no results that first time?
The first time you did a request for qualification.
Okay.
And I believe that we did, it was 3 or 4 weeks, which is the typical recruitment process when you're recruiting. I would say at least 4 weeks for that type of a position. This is a request for proposals where you're asking people that are interested in continuing or to be your city attorney send you a proposal that then an evaluation committee reviews and scores, and you make a decision on who the city attorney is going to be.
Okay, other question. I'm new to this. So if we do the RFP and we get none and our existing council doesn't put in one as well, where are we then? What if we get fired? That's what I'm asking. I'm just, is that a possibility? Do they have to then put in an RFP as well?
Yes, they need to submit a proposal if they want to continue to be the city attorney.
The last time. They didn't submit one the last time. Is that correct, Jackie?
Correct. No, they did not.
And we didn't get any response because this, my understanding, this is not all attorneys want to represent cities, and it's very, I think it's a very delicate area for attorneys, how involved they want to get with cities. But I do know this particular group does have a good reputation with a lot of and they work with a lot of the other cities surrounding us.
Okay. So what would you guys like to do? Do you want to do Councilor Mercero? Yes.
I think there's something missing here. In our original discussions and after that, we agreed to work with our existing council to improve our communication and understand each other. And I'll have to put myself at fault at the last time when we were asked about doing a RFQ, which I believe Councilor Reisner was pushing for, that for some reason we all agreed to that, when in fact we'd already agreed to work with our council in the past. So how we got into that question about doing an RFQ right now, I'm a little bit lost.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, Councilor Tracy, what would you like to do? I'll put you on the spot. RFQ, RFP, do a review, or do nothing?
I don't know if I have enough information to feel as though there's an issue here than going back out to market, but we did go out to market and I don't think we had any takers. So I'm going along with Councilor Todd. I'm concerned about getting fired by our own attorneys and then being in market where we're having to pay for a higher cost because, well, we got fired by our own attorneys. So I think there's a risk mitigation conversation we need to have on this topic.
Okay. Which means basically, let's talk about it again later.
Councilor Tracy, again, if no other firms want to represent us or they didn't want to participate in the RFQ process, what do we do without a firm? We don't have a city attorney. So is it worth the risk at this point to just go out to market? And I think that's a conversation, yes, that we need to have. We need to have some more information. Back to Councilor Neese's point, if we have not done performance evaluations on the firm, we don't have base to go off of. And if we're not going off of base, we don't know what good and bad or good and indifferent is. So I'm hesitant without having some performance standards or performance evaluation information to be able to say, sure, let's just go out because we feel we have an issue here, or just to go out for an RFQ or an RFP because we should every 4-year cycle. And that's where I am on it.
Okay. Jackie, what's your experience as a city manager, city administrator? How cities generally do go out for RFPs periodically? Is that just because it's in their charter? Is it just good policy? What's your take on it?
My experience in other organizations, if they were having an issue with their city attorney, they would go out for a request for proposals. Or if the city attorney didn't want to represent that city any longer. I think I went back and tried to read the minutes from the last time that you guys discussed this and you had an executive session, and it seemed like the minutes reflected that you guys wanted to improve your relationship with the current attorneys. And that's where it was left. You can go out for a request for proposal if you want to, but if you haven't sat down and tried to improve that relationship with the existing firm, you are putting yourself at risk for the city not having an attorney if others don't respond. But staff is willing to go either route with what the city council wants to do. I do need a majority of you to provide some guidance on what you want to do with the RFP.
I believe that we should just do a review first and put the RFP on hold, but I don't know how David will like that idea. He needs to be, yeah, for some reason it's really, I can't hear you at all.
Mute, I believe.
Are we muted? Tammy, do we have him muted on our end?
He is not muted.
Type it. Everyone else is in the chat. Hold up a sign. Jackie, do you know what he's saying?
No, and I don't feel comfortable speaking on their behalf, but I do remember back when we were having this conversation last July, whatever it was, is that Chad indicated that they too wanted to improve that relationship.
Okay.
So maybe sitting down and having a conversation, talking about expectations. We did have them be part of our strategic planning last January, and I think that really helped. With our partnership, that's certainly one option that I believe Chad and David and Ashley would certainly be open to. But again, I don't like speaking on their behalf.
Okay, David.
How about now?
Now we can hear you.
All right.
Thank
Yay.
you. Awesome.
Yay. Sorry, I don't know what happened there, but I just fiddled with the microphone settings. So here we are.
All right.
Okay, so yes, I mean, obviously, I think my recollection was after that last meeting and discussion, we had some emails back and forth talking about trying to set up a time to sit down with those that were interested to do so. Of course, we're still willing to do that. You know, as I've said in the past, as I believe Chad has as well, we also fully understand that you're absolutely right. It's you know, in one form or another, either through myself, Jack Hammond, who preceded me for a long time, you know, the city's had a very long relationship with the firm in one form or another. And so
going out for an RFP and RFQ was I think a very reasonable approach as well. So, it's a little hard for me to, as you might imagine, speak with this topic because there's a self-interest issue, and or at least there'd be certainly the perception of a self-interest issue. And so I want to be as candid as I can, but also say that, if there's a desire to have that discussion again, we just as we were before, are certainly willing to do that. But I of course, follow your lead in this. I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to guide it one way or the other, given the fact that it's our work that's involved. I think that's inappropriate.
Thank you. But you're not going to run if we decide that we would like to keep you on and have those discussions and maybe do a review down the road. That's okay with you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think as we did last time, we aren't, I don't think it's our in our nature to say we're just going to, leave, and we wouldn't do that here either. I don't know that, we would put in again, just like we didn't put in last time. We haven't had that discussion amongst the three of us that are, Chad and Ashley and I. But certainly I don't see any reason to think that we'd be, just bolting either. I certainly would think that having a conversation first, as we've been sort of continuing to serve, that would continue if that's what the council wishes to do.
Okay. So should we just do a consensus on trying to improve the relationship and then possibly doing a review maybe in 6 months or 9 months or a year? Or do we want to take a formal vote on the RFP? Councilor Tracy.
Okay, I guess I'm lost on improving the relationship. I would say that we go back to putting together performance evaluation criteria, working with the firm to have open expectations, not just based on the contract, but based on the business that we're conducting with the firm. And to your point, Mayor, I agree. I think that when you have a firm here for 40 years, sure, it's a good idea to go out and look, but we did. And we didn't have folks who said, yeah, me, pick me. I want to be a part of Gladstone's city staff. So maybe what we should do is, I would look for consensus of sitting down, having a conversation with firms, getting open expectation in place, understanding what the performance expectations would be, both sides in the relationship. And then to your point, maybe a year down the road, go back to market. And I think that would be fine, because then we're at least working off a base. And I believe the firm is professional enough. They would want to do the same thing too, because then the expectations are clear. If there's been some satisfactory issues or unsatisfactory issues prior, we can talk about that. If we do need to rebuild some parts of the relationship, we can talk about that. My understanding is that a lot of these relationship issues are personal relationships with certain council members and the firm. And that's not something I'm experiencing, and I don't have issues or concerns. I believe this firm is well regarded across the communities, and I've spoken with other counselors from other cities, and I don't hear a lot of unsatisfactory results out of this firm. So that's where I am on it.
Councilor Todd.
I don't know. That's how I feel about it right now. I think that if we're going to do an evaluation type situation, we also need to look at changing how the charter is written, because if the charter is written that we do it every 4 years, I believe that we do it every 4 years. Yes. But maybe that's not something that we need to have in the charter. Maybe it's the evaluation type form of it, because we have to follow the rules that are in place for those things. And if they don't make sense, then let's make it so that it makes sense. So
every 4 years is a review, not RFP.
Okay.
That's in our charter. It's a review.
Okay.
And
the review is fair. How are we going to review though? What's the criteria? Do we even know what the criteria is for the review?
Well, and that's the unfortunate part, is we're supposed to be doing these reviews this whole time, and it has never been done, both for the judge and staff, certain staff members, and the city attorney. So it's in our charter. We need to start doing what it tells us to do. So I'm open for review. Counselor Neese?
I'm open for review.
Counselor Mercero?
I'm open for a review.
Counselor Ripley?
Yeah, I think the review's important.
Okay. Jackie, what kind of a timeline could we look at realistically for review? COVID's kind of throwing everybody sideways here. So I'm thinking, honestly, maybe the first part of the year would make more sense. That would give us.
Why don't you let me take a look to see how other cities do evaluations on their attorneys so that I can get some comparable information. You also have the potential for new elected officials in January. So I think that the end of this year is a good time frame to try to have a review process in place.
Okay, so do you want to get back to us next month, or do we want to do this in September?
I could probably give you an update in September.
Okay. Is that okay with you, David?
Yes.
Put you on the spot again.
It's just I got two screens and trying to get it back to the unmute. It's totally fine.
Okay, great. Anything else on this topic? I don't see anybody. All right. So then we're on to business carried forward. Do we have any business carried forward?
Thank you, Mayor. The only business carried forward was that I wanted to reiterate that the city's very excited about the new Gladstone brand tourism strategy that we developed. You had a work session on it last month. The selection committee has met since we've had the work session. And just to remind you, the selection committee is Councilor Matt Tracy, Councilor Linda Neese, Councilor Tracy Todd, Senior Center Manager Colin Black. We have Lori Bell, who's assisting us from Oregon City, and myself. We are excited. The management team is excited. And I think the next steps will be for the city to actively launch our new branding exercise. And we'll be talking about doing that in the next couple of weeks. And I just wanted to make sure that we followed up with the full council so that you were aware that we're going to start marketing our new brand.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next is business from the audience. And it looks like we have two, unless Kyle wants to speak again during business from the audience. So Tammy, take it away.
Les Poole is the first.
Come in all right?
Yeah, we got you. We can hear you.
Hey, Les Poole. I live near Gladstone, of course. I hate to say it, but thank God for Zoom. It's actually got us by, but I am looking forward to times when we can further utilize the beautiful new building. I sent an email to the city manager, or I should say administrator today, saying how fortunate we were to get that building open before the pandemic. It's been a real blessing. I want to speak real briefly about Metro T 2020. That's a proposal to borrow $3 billion in November, and there's another $3 billion in fees and taxes and things in that are proposed. But ultimately, a $1.8 to $1.9 billion concept that was being considered in 2018 didn't move forward because it was set aside for the affordable housing bond. And then recently in May, placed the homeless service bond on the. We've now got $3 billion in borrowing, and tied to that is the Sunrise Corridor, a lot of very important projects, and certainly funding for the trolley bridge. And my concern is that come November, this is such a big ask that a lot of projects that I would support and others would support may not happen because I think the public's appetite is getting stretched. So I would hope that everyone on the council and on the staff would provide more feedback, more input, and look more deeply beyond the trolley bridge project, which is near and dear to home. I would say that while I support the bridge project, I think we need a clearer picture of how much it will actually cost in the end, and what options we have if the T2020 proposal doesn't pass in November. So I appreciate that, and transportation is a real big issue in our community. Hopefully as the economy comes back, we're ready to address it. So thank you.
Thank you, Les. One quick question, do you go to the C4 meetings or listen in? Because transportation is the #1 thing, and we've got a really heavy transportation agenda over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I catch some of them, and I did testify a couple of times at the hearings that Metro did, prior to the shutdown. So again, I'm not here to be negative, but I just don't want us to have such a big appetite that we end up with nothing.
Right, well, we agreed last night in the executive committee to start having breakout sessions with small groups, localized groups, to help with the transportation decisions. So you may want to stay up to date on that and get on a couple of those committees.
All right, thank you.
All right, Tammy, next.
Liz McCrary. I don't see her listed currently.
All right, is that it?
The other was the submitted.
From Deanne Henson.
Correct, that was sent to council and we'll post on the website.
Okay, so Deanne Henson sent an email regarding fireworks, which I'll bring up during business from the council. So that's it from business from the audience, unless there's anybody else online. Nope. All right. So the next and final is business from the council. Let's see how how about if we start with Councilor Tracy, because you're up there on the top.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to make mine fairly brief. After reading the city reports today, staff reports today and yesterday, I'm very aware of the fact, that the staff working as essential services staff are exposed to a lot of things in this time, in this day and age. So all I want to do is say thank you, police department staff, fire department staff, public works staff, everybody that works for the city. They've gone above and beyond. They've done a lot of things, as Citizen Pool or somebody mentioned earlier. This is a fantastic group of people, and I don't think they're recognized enough. So I just want to say thank you. I also want to thank you, Mr. Stemple. You've been out volunteering, I know that, and you've kept some of our shut-in seniors fed. I think we're going to do another set of rapids here, and I just don't see the staff. I know it wears on them internally, but they're fantastic. And just a shout out to all of them. They're just great. So that's what I want to do. That's my business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Neese?
I kind of ditto what he had to say, because I don't think we recognize them enough, and they've got such a positive attitude, and they keep very upbeat, and they keep everything running, and I've yet to see anyone be upset or short, and it just amazes me the attitude that our city has, and they're just great to work with. So I appreciate all of them and thank them.
Thank you. Councilor Mercero?
I agree with the last two, and also support the great service by our staff.
That's it?
That's it.
All right, Councilor Todd.
Well, of course, I want to thank the city staff and public works, of course. Wanted to also say I'm very, very excited about the logo and branding work that we've done. I'm giddy. This is the stuff that just makes me go crazy. Very excited about that. Very excited to welcome in 2 sort of add-on businesses here in town. Tiger Juice is a new smoothie place that's going to be attached to Portland Avenue Pizza Company. And I think they're opening like next week. And then of course, Pearl's Place, sort of in addition to Two Girls Catering. It's nice to see that it's coming alive down here. And I think it's just going to get better. I'm just really excited about it. It's the stuff that makes my heart happy. And everyone, hang in there.
I'll add to that, Councilor Todd, real quickly. I was over there Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah, Monday. And let me tell you, they were packed. People waiting in line and people kept coming in, and it was just amazing to see how many people have reached out and coming over there and supporting. So it's good. It's going to be a great opportunity for our community to have them there.
Thank you. Councilor Ripley?
A couple things I got. You're going to talk about 4th of July, so we'll leave it at that. I'll give you my 2 cents on 4th of July. It was incredible, this lower part of town. There were neighborhoods communicating with mortars. There were people everywhere. It was literally like every block was insane. The drawback for me is it took my dog another 4 days to stop chewing on his feet. I had to sedate one of the dogs. I didn't the other dog, but the dogs really didn't like that. Well, one of the dogs did. The other one didn't. Anyway, this I-205 tolling project, they got 5 options that are all horrible for Gladstone. Our next meeting for that is the 29th from 1 to 2. But this is something we gotta make sure we really stay on top of, because if they do any kind of toll, it's going to shut down Arlington and Dartmouth with all the cars getting off the freeway. So their 5 options are horrible, but I guess they'll give us something to fight with them about. That's all I got.
All right, so I'm the last one. First is fireworks. I have a pile of emails from people that are absolutely livid about the quantity and length of time the fireworks were going off. They started about 4 days before fireworks, before 4th of July, and last night was the first night that I was able to sleep all night without having the TV blaring, fan going to keep my dog calm. So I don't know what police and fire can do about it, but it was a little over the, not a little, a lot over the top this year. So is Chief Schmerber still on the line here? I don't see him. So, oh, there you are. Hi, Chief. What can we do about it? It was really insane this year. I know people are excited. They need to get out, let off some steam, but this was just crazy. Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I show he's unmuted.
Okay, well, maybe we're going to have to get back to you later on that one, but I think we need to come up with some idea of how to deal with it next year, because it was really crazy. And I will definitely give you all the copies of the emails that I've received so that you have them in hand. Randy, did you want to say anything else about fireworks since you were going to bring it up also?
No, just that one of my dogs really didn't appreciate it, but he did finally stop chewing on his foot, and it's starting to heal. It gives him anxiety, even the little tiny ones, but when they were going off every 30 seconds, we had him sedated, and that didn't even work. But I enjoyed it, but I know there's a lot of other people that the illegal stuff really bothers. A lot of our veterans have to deal with that. That's not very nice to them, but
no.
That's all. That's my 2 cents.
All right. The next thing I had was on the food pantry. It's going strong. A lot of our volunteers are getting burned out because it's a constant thing, and we have to keep changing the model because of COVID. Right now we're doing a modified pre-packaged box model where they walk up, they get to choose dairy products and meat products, but the rest of the stuff is pre-packed. That seems to be going okay. We're doing that on Thursdays on Nelson Lane from 3:30 to 5:30. And everybody is welcome. So if you know somebody that's in need, just send them that direction on Thursdays. But again, we need volunteers desperately. The Homebound Senior Program, we're now up to 37 deliveries, and we're doing that every other week. We're getting calls from out of Gladstone, so we're delivering to Milwaukee, Clackamas, and Oregon City also. So I'm working with those jurisdictions to see if we can come up with a better plan than having Gladstone do it for them. And again, volunteers. If somebody wants to drive and deliver to the Homebound Seniors, we do that the first and third Saturday of the month. We meet at the food pantry on Nelson Lane at noon to get the assignments and the boxes and head out. On the I-205 tolling, the Clackamas County Coordinating Executive Committee, we had a meeting last night. Actually, is this the 205? No, not 205 yet. We set the agenda for Clackamas for C4, and we decided to add an equity lens discussion in September, so that might be of interest to some of you. C4 talks about the high-level transportation and housing issues, and we want to make sure that the equity piece is a part of our discussions moving forward. So that's what we're going to talk about the next meeting, which is in September. I think it's the 2nd. I have so many meetings, I just forget which day. I think it's the 2nd Thursday of the month. Currently, we're really focused on the transportation funding bill and House Bill 2001, which we had a presentation earlier on what the ramifications are and what the regional issues are going to be. Parks and Rec Board met last night, and it was great. It's nice seeing that all of these projects that they've been talking about for 2 years are finally coming to fruition. They discussed the city branding strategy and how they can integrate parks needs with that. Nature Park site plan scope of work was approved, and they're going to be starting that right away, hoping to have that done in December of this year. Meldrum Bar fee implementation was discussed. Now it's with our attorney researching any possible property restrictions. Stop signs at Max Patterson Park in Clarendon, as approved by the Parks Traffic and Council, are on order, and they'll be installed soon. Commissioner Eichstad brought up the amount of destruction done by the BMX track and RC car folks, and all without any approval or direction from the city. The RC Park group is now working with with the Parks and Rec Board. So they're talking about what they need, what they've done, maybe moving. The BMX track people, we have not been able to get any contact with them yet. So hopefully we can bring them into the fold and start talking about their location, because if any of you have been down there, it's pretty crazy. I think it's dangerous. They think it's fun. So I guess it's all in the perspective. The last thing discussed was the Ridgegate property and how it was deeded as a family park. I did not know that. And I think it's the David Stark or David something family park. So they're going to look into that further, and then hopefully the encroachments will be addressed soon. They've been asking about that for about a year. I-205 expansion tolling discussion. Like Councilor Ripley said, we need to really stay on top of that. August 3rd, they're going to be releasing the 5 options for the NEPA, and there's only a 45-day comment period. So we need to make sure that we're on top of that we let citizens know that they need to look at those options, and none of them is still an option. We can say none of the above, and that's what we need to do, because we're not being represented, the county isn't, and we need them to start from square one again. I know that's going to take a legislative action, but we've got support now, and that's the direction that it needs to go. Last, COVID. I know everybody's really tired of hearing about it. I certainly am. And I just wanted everybody to know that as of July 8th, we have 29 cases of COVID. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but we have more than Lake Oswego and we have more than West Lynn with significantly less population, and that we have doubled in less than a month. So we need to still stay vigilant, wear those masks, social distancing, don't gather in groups of more than 10, which is now a new directive from the governor. And I know a lot of people don't really, they don't want to wear those masks themselves because it's not their freedom, but a lot of people just, it's more than just protecting you, it's protecting all of the people around you. And going from 11 to 29 in less than a month, that should tell you something. We need to be safe. We need to be considerate of others. And that's all that I have. Anything else from anybody? Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Counselor Tracy, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second. Counselor Neese?
Motion to adjourn by Counselor Tracy, seconded by Counselor Neese. Do we have any further discussion? Tammy, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, meeting adjourned at 8:16 p.m. Thank you, everybody.